What's up, everybody? I'm Aaron Jordan, and we are here on the first episode of Tech Lounge. We're here at Manatech. We're in what was sunny earlier, but it's nighttime now. We're in Miami. We're here in Florida, and right here on this sofa, man, I'm going to be bringing you some of the hottest people in Miami that are working in the tech scene and building right here. So let's get right on to it. So today we're thrilled to have a true powerhouse joining us. Our guest is a trailblazer in tech, education, and social impact, who is the founder of Tech LLC. She's redefined equity-driven solutions and empowered countless small businesses. As an angel and seed investor, she's invested millions in underrepresented entrepreneurs and has recently launched a fund to support even more diverse talent. She's also the co-founder of ByteCon Foundation, committed to expanding the tech talent pipeline by 1 million women and minorities over the next 5 years. That's incredible. Her philanthropic impact spans scholarships for students nationwide, and her influence has reached global platforms. Get this, y'all. CBS, NBC, Yahoo News, Business Insider, the UK Parliament, House of Lords. She also serves on major advisory boards. Some of those include iHeartMedia's advisory board, the Black Information Network, and she's the vice chair of the Miami-Dade County Public Schools NAF, STEM, and CTE advisory board. Let's make sure we get those acronyms correct, everybody. With a BFA from NYU TISC. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Okay. A master's in education leadership and executive leadership certificate from Cornell, y'all. She brings expertise, passion, and dedication to every role. Today, she's joining us to share some insights on building community, promoting equity, and achieving financial freedom. Without further ado, everybody, please welcome Kwamara Thompson.
Well, thank you so much, Aaron, for you guys. I'm like reading that. I'm like, oh, did I say all that? Oh.
And before we get into it, wait, shoe cam.
But Aaron, thank you so much for having me
Absolutely.
on.
Thank
It
you
is
for
an
being
honor to be the first person on the podcast. I guess I am popping the cherry.
Yes.
To make this happen. So
Yes.
I'm honored that you thought of me. And so thank you so much, Aaron. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So let's go ahead and get right into it. Give me 2 truths and a lie.
Oh, boy. Oh, I'm just going to say to you.
Yeah,
and, then,
yeah.
and then you have to figure
I'm
out.
gonna try to figure it out.
Okay. Let's see. Usually you could like write this down on a piece of paper. A woman of a certain age. Okay, so let me think about this real quick. I used to play professional soccer.
Okay.
I had a play done in London.
Okay.
And I have an academic scholarship, or I had an academic scholarship.
I believe all of those, so this is tough. If I had to say one of them is a lie, you didn't play professional soccer?
I did not. I played amateur soccer.
Okay.
So to just say that I played on a traveling soccer team from age 8 to 18, traveled all across the United States.
Nice.
Had the opportunity to go to a Division I soccer team, but I decided to go to NYU Tisch on my academic and performative arts scholarship. And then but in my 20s and 30s, I played in amateur soccer leagues. It is actually one of my favorite sports. Though now I help run the Miami Tennis Club.
Okay, so transition from soccer to tennis. So, but
Yes.
from soccer to performing arts, what inspired you to become a founder, and how did that shape your drive in early parts of your journey?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And it always varies how I answer it. But since we're talking about soccer, which is my childhood, and I just said from age 8 to 18, when I was in 2nd, 3rd grade, which is around the time that you're 8 years old or so, I used to create children's books for other children, because apparently I wasn't a child at age 8 or 9. And I would write this is literally what I did if I had free downtime. I'd ask my parents, to buy the paper, the construction paper. I'm going to date myself in a minute. And then I would literally handwrite and draw. I'm not a great drawer. Draw little illustrations, create these children's books, and then I would 3-hole punches so I could bind them together with construction paper and then put nice little cute little ribbon and a little bow tie. And then I would go back into the school and sell them to my friends.
It was giving business. As you were talking, I'm like, this feels like it was turning into a business.
It was like a whole thing. But the way that I actually became an actual full-on entrepreneur, I was, so after I graduated at NYU to School of the Arts, and I could tell this story, but long story short, I ended up becoming an educator in the classroom in the state of New Jersey. And they put me into an alternative school. At that time, I had been winning some awards as an educator, and they usually try to put your top educators in in the harder schools. And so I went there, and I remember when I first walked into the school, it was one of the, like I said, one of the lower performing schools in the state. And I had so many educators who were older than me. I was in my 20s, who were older than me, who basically were like, listen, don't have high expectations. The kids are not going to be able to do the work. They don't care about their school.
People in leadership said that?
Peers and other folks. I think they were just trying to say, like, don't get yourself frustrated because kids are not doing their work or they're not showing up for class or whatever the case may be. This is not to say that to downplay anything that the educators were just saying, but that was just their experience. And I said to myself, that is not going to be the children's experience with me. Absolutely not. Right? Or I'm going to keep my expectations high.
That's right.
We're going to make sure that our Black and brown babies do what they have to do.
Exactly.
This is an alternative high school, which we're talking about things being cyclical. These kids were doing construction, graphic design, all kinds of certificate things. But in the early 2000s, going into training, CTE, career technical education programming, was not the thing that normal kids did or elite. This is what you did in alternative high schools because you had no other options. It's basically how
the educational kids were the trailblazers.
Okay, the educational system. So I wanted to find out, and I was the high school English teacher, and meant that the kids had to pass my class and pass the state class, state test in English in order to get their high school diploma. I wanted to know who they were, what were their barriers, what were their passions, what did they care about? And so I started to ask them. And we were literally, this is back in the day, y'all. So instead of social media, they would write in journals, little composites, and I would write a question in the beginning, and they would have 5 minutes or whatever, 10 minutes in the beginning of class to just answer. And I said, I wouldn't care about your grammar, I wouldn't care about your spelling, I wouldn't care about anything. Just write whatever comes to mind. And then as I started to get to know the kids, I started to understand and come up with some data. And what I realized, because this is an urban environment, is that the majority of my students, and this is high school, the majority of my students, if they were not the main contributor to their household finances, they were having to contribute their money to the finances for the household. Okay? And some of them were actually literally the breadwinner because they had unstable housing and they were paying for themselves to live on their own based off of whatever circumstances they were on. But they're high school students, they're teenagers. What kind of jobs do you get when you're a teen?
Did McDonald's.
Right, exactly.
I worked at Burlington.
Okay.
I worked at a fruit stand.
Okay, so retail. You're working retail, you're working fast food. You're making minimum wage or whatever. But
allegedly I got paid under the table.
And you're trying to maximize that amount of money, but you still have an obligation to go to school. So you finish school at 2:30 or whatever. You get to your job by 3:30. You want to maximize that. So you're going to work 40 hours a week, which means that you're on the closing and you don't get home. So then you end your shift at 10, 11. You have to close it down midnight. You don't drive.
And wait for the bus. If the bus is still running.
Right. So you got to wait for the bus if the bus is still running. If the bus is not still running, and this is before Uber and Lyft, you got to figure out a taxi, somebody, or you're walking home.
I was the king of walk. My people used to joke on me and say, I used to put miles on my shoes.
Okay.
So I used to walk from neighborhood to neighborhood.
But so think about that. So we have kids who might not get home till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning from working.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And they have to be at school with their work done by 7:30. How many adults could do that?
Not me.
And we're asking kids to do that. And so I decided to create the first virtual learning classroom in the state of New Jersey. We were using Google before it was a Google Suite. All they had was Google Docs. We had Blackboard 1.0. I created a virtual learning classroom. I said, when you have time, do this work. Let's have I would have office hours as if I was a college professor, but I'm in high school. And it was transformative. The school went from one of the lowest performing schools to one of the top performing schools. Kids from there were graduating, going to NJIT, MIT, and it's still one of the top performing schools to this day.
So let me ask you this, Kwamara. What advice would you give to new founders who don't know like where to get their start? Like this podcast is supposed to be for people who are trying to go from an idea on a napkin to a revenue generating company. Some people have never pitched before. Some people watching don't even know what the concept is going to be. Don't know the slightest idea about product market fit. So like, what kind of advice would you give to somebody watching about how to like even get started?
Listen, I'll be honest, I have done a very unconventional route, right? I just talked about being a teacher in the classroom, creating this virtual learning class, people seeing the work that I was doing, bringing me up onto a leadership position for the district. And then I decided to create my own education, technology, business consulting firm because I understood that we needed to do this across the country for our students.
Yep.
And so I would say a few things. You have to be bold. You have to say yes to opportunities that you never thought that you would say yes to. Nothing is going to be linear. You're going to be going in these sort of waves and circular motions, and they're going to create these sort of beautiful canvases on their own, but it's not going to be a straight line, and that's okay. If you're asking me about product market fit, and I'll be honest with you, I've been in this game. I mentor lots of entrepreneurs. I'm not a business speak person. So I'm not going to talk to you about product market fit. I'm really not. I'm really going to be more like, go out there, do your pilot, do some research and development, see if that makes sense, ask the community what they want. I believe in shared leadership. So oftentimes I like to co-create things together with the quote unquote clients or the customer so we can come together. And then that also allows folks to feel like they have a say, and you create a community of ambassadors who really care about the work that you're doing. So I think in those ways that makes sense. The other piece is be really clear about like how do you want to earn your revenue. So a lot of folks that I mentor are very B2C driven, which is business to consumer. In my opinion, business to consumer takes a lot of work. And so you have to have, that's a numbers game.
So sometimes not as much return.
Okay, potentially. Because it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
You have to have high value of people buying into your product, buying into what it is that you're trying to do and sell to them.
And how do you scale that? If you're the expert in your business, how do you scale yourself, you know?
Well, there's being an expert in your business and knowing the knowledge, but then also understanding that you have to build a team that can actually be this scalable and grow. But so let me just swing back to the business consumer idea, which is fine. Like if that's you feel like, man, I got to be a business consumer because you have a product that's very consumer based. Fine. But honestly, one of the ways that I was able to grow so quickly was to have a lot of business to government contracts. So I do B2G, I do a lot of B2B, business to business, business to government. I don't worry so much about the consumer. And I'm not trying to say that people aren't important. That's not necessarily the case. But if you're trying to scale quickly and have the type of revenue that allows you to pivot, thinking about how you are helpful for other businesses, what problem that you're solving that will help other businesses, what the services are you providing that will help other businesses, and also contracting with the government is huge.
Ooh, that's one right there.
So like I just said, B2G. And so we can talk about, we just going through an election cycle. We can talk about the owner of X and Tesla. And ultimately, the owner of X and Tesla, the owner of Microsoft, the owner of Facebook, the owner of Google, their main funding comes from their government contracting. Advertising is big, so they get a lot of money on advertising, and we all as consumers, we create their content so they don't have to do much. But the majority of their money literally comes from government contracting.
I feel a conflict of interest coming on.
A conflict of interest.
Heavy on the con. Heavy on the con.
Listen, and I bring this up to say there are going to be a lot of entrepreneurs that I've met in my life who say, politics what does that have to do with me?
Politics aside.
Politics aside, it has nothing to do with my business.
Yeah.
I said, well, listen, honey, politics allows you to figure out who you're going to do your RFP with. If you have something that you know would be great and beneficial for a particular community, and you talk to that politician, you say, "Hey, let's partner together to create a policy and bring funds behind it, and then I can be the government contract that does this work."
Facts.
Baby, like you got to be. There's
Facts.
lots of different ways that you can do this without always having to go straight to your client or consumer. And I think that's another reason why people are so focused on social media, because how else do you build a big consumer or client base if you're not on social media? I'm not saying don't do it. I'm just saying think about other ways to think about your earned revenue stream. Diversification of your revenue and diversification of how you think about business is going to be your key to success.
I've always been told that politics is really what resources go where and when and how.
That's correct.
And so for anybody who's thinking that, politics have nothing to do with your business, I would challenge that a little bit. What's up, y'all? It's Aaron Jordan, your host of the Tech Lounge podcast. Thank you for coming to kick it with us today. I hope you learned something. This episode is brought to you by Pebble. Pebble is a fintech company that helps event organizers to monetize and manage their marketplaces. Think about festivals, concerts, sporting events, and local farmers markets. In partnership with Manatech. Manatech is a part of billionaire Moishi Mana's project to turn downtown Miami into the startup hub of the Americas. They do that by providing programs, events, workspaces, and funding to support this. Previously, Mana revitalized Wynwood in Miami, and he's already acquired over 80 properties in downtown. To learn more, visit www.manatech.com. I want to pivot and ask, from an investor perspective.
Okay.
Let's talk specifically about pre-seed, seed, pre-revenue stage companies. What kinds of things? Well, firstly, what are you investing right now? What kind of companies are in your portfolio, or what looks attractive to you right now?
Yeah, great question. So I personally am not investing. I have my my money sort of tied up into quite a few assets, and I will say those assets run the gamut between businesses and real estate. I also hold life insurance, and you might be thinking, what does that mean? But life insurance as an asset is important. Listen, people don't talk about this, but if you have a business partner, if you guys are in a partnership, each one of you guys should have life insurance that relates to the business. So if something happens to one of you, that doesn't stop the business from going forward, and you can have earned revenue and income. So there are ways that you want to start thinking about protecting your assets, and life insurance is one of those ways to do it. There's lots of other ways too, but I'm just throwing that out there.
I'm writing these gems down. Y'all better get these gems.
I got somewhat put off kilter. Oh, right. And in terms of, so I said that to say those are the things where my money is currently tied up. So I'm currently in a phase of my life where I'm very asset rich, but a little liquid poor. So I'm not personally I'm going to be investing. Though, to your point, you mentioned having a fund that we're looking to invest in. So this fund is really thinking about, and it's called Your Family and Friends Fund. The idea is to be your family and friends. We know that our counterparts can literally write an idea on a napkin. We've seen this and heard this multiple times, and go to their network and say, I've got literally just a few words on a napkin. Can you give me 100,000? Can you give me 1,000,000? Can you give me XYZ? No one is asking for a PowerPoint. No one is asking for projections. They just say, listen, we know you.
I believe in you.
We believe in you.
Yeah.
We'll just send you the money.
Yeah. Can you talk to me a little bit about the statistics around that? I believe the last statistic I heard was that Black founders are getting like 1.3%, something like that, and Black women founders are getting even less than that.
Yes, that is. I mean, you basically said the statistic, which is that we are under 2% of the funding. And so when you think about some of the things that are actually going on from a legal and political perspective, as it relates to the Fearless Fund, for example, and them unfortunately losing the case, and so they can no longer blatantly say that they are funding Black women-owned businesses. They lost the case. You're thinking to yourself, why in the world would someone go after them for just 1% of the pie?
It's crazy.
And we can, again, I don't want to make this a political race-based conversation. There's lots of thoughts that I have, but just think about that. Just that 1% was enough for someone to say, well,
To
we don't
push
even want
back.
that 1% to go to
Underserved founders.
Black founders, Black female founders, etc. And so I think it's really incumbent upon us as a community to figure out ways that we create our own micro economies that we invest. So that's the point of our Family and Friends Fund. There's two pieces, right? We will be your family and friends and do that very, very nascent pre-seed when it's just kind of like an idea.
Yep.
On the other hand, we're also crowdfunding to get our communities to invest into the businesses that we believe in. And so for me personally, I want to make sure that there's a social impact component. So I'm very industry agnostic,
Okay.
but I want to make sure that there is both a financial and a social impact to the work that we decide to fund.
So, industry agnostic, guys, it means that there's no specific industry that the fund is looking at, but high on the priority list, it sounds like that there's a social impact component to the business.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay,
yeah,
nice.
Very high.
And so, from your perspective, what are some common pitfalls that you think founders should avoid?
So I think a few things. I think one of the things that I've been seeing a lot of, and so I guess I've become passionate about and thinking about. I also sit on a lot of boards. I've noticed that founders are not very good at creating boards of advisors, board of directors, and they wait until maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years down the line. But actually, this is very foundational work. It allows you to sort of think about what is it that you actually need? How do you cultivate people's experiences? You might have a network of folks who do want to help you, but if you don't know how to harness that help, what is the point? So you need to figure out what that looks like. So there is some thinking, there is some structure that has to come to be, but that is part of creating the foundation of safeguarding your company. So I have seen this has happened to quite a few folks that I know. Black folk in particular, where they get ousted out of their own successful company.
Now that's a horror story that I've been hearing about, and I still, to the life of me, I can't wrap my brain around how is that even happening to founders?
Well, because they wait a little longer in the thing, and then at that point in time, people are like, well, you need to have a board of directors, you have to have a board of advisors. And now you've got your investors kind of telling you who should sit on the board. And oftentimes, even though we have Black founders and Black businesses, those advisors and board of directors don't often look like us. In fact, they very rarely look like us.
So you tell me these stakeholders are appointed by your investors who's supposed to have your back and be in your corner and really want their return long term, right? Are, I'm gonna say air quotes, like setting people up?
I mean, I don't want to.
Maybe that was harsh language.
But
where I come from, okay,
could be.
But I mean, the investors can't be the ops though.
It can happen, right? So I'll just tell a story that I think is somewhat neutral, and this has happened, and I'll take it in the space of education, but I do see this happening quite a bit in the private sector, but I think if I say it in education, it just makes it a little bit easier. So I had some folks, I knew quite a few different founders who were starting their own charter schools, okay? And they had a board of advisors of people from the community who were really interested. And the makeup of the board of advisors was very similar to the makeup of the students that they were trying to serve, i.e., predominantly Black and brown. Well, they got a lot of pushback in terms of getting investor funding and getting approved by the school board because their board basically did not have white people on it.
Even though the board was representative of the demographic
Even though. So there is a
deep
belief system.
Put a deep sigh. Can you put star, 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 deep sigh right
So as we know, and this is why I never worry about whether individuals are racist, we're talking about the institutional structures that create inequity. The institutional structures that create inequity within an environment. So the school boards and investors were shy if there weren't at least a white person, and they generally wanted a white male who may actually, by the way, not have any experience in education, period. And then oftentimes they wanted that person to be in a strong position of power on the board, either as board chair or part of the board leadership. Now you can take with that what you will. I'm just letting you know. And then the next thing we know, people start getting ousted out of their successful successful companies and schools, charter schools that they managed to put together.
That's a whole nother podcast. Because there's a rabbit hole that I'm staring dead in the face that I want to do a cannonball in, but for the sake of
But that's why I say
y'all in
understand
the comments, y'all tell us y'all thoughts, and we'll make sure Kwamara gets some of these replies back so we can kind of go through this and just kind of see what everybody else is
So I
thinking.
said that to say that's one pitfall that I see. The
Okay.
other pitfall is, baby, you don't need to do all this.
Mm.
Everyone gonna talk to you about how entrepreneurship is hard, and yes, to a degree, there are some challenges to it, but life is challenging. But if you don't know how to delegate, if you've never played a team sport, baby, find one and
No,
learn.
facts.
Like, you need a team. This solopreneur, killing yourself, burning the midnight oil, that is played and it's for the birds. Don't do it.
It is. I'm so glad you're saying that because I think a lot of times, especially in these founder circles, you'll find that people are like trying to one up each other on, oh, I stayed up like later than you, or I was on this many calls, I had this many meetings. But it's also like, give yourself your weekends. Let your team rest so that you can come back on Mondays and be super productive. Go to that baseball game, go see that movie, go spend time with your loved one. Go watch the paint peel off the walls. Do nothing.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of times founders, we're managing everything from business development. We want partnerships, and we might need to do hiring within the company. We've got to invest, or find investors. We're fundraising. We're still trying to be customer centric, so we're having user interviews and usability testing. You're doing all these things. You're meeting with your social media managers and your business development managers and your advisors and your stakeholders. And then it's just like you burn through. I mean, you look up and it's been 4 Fridays, and you look up and it's the next month.
Right.
So what advice would you give to budding entrepreneurs, people who are really killing it? What advice would you give them just about balance and work-life balance?
Listen, I think work-life balance is probably the wrong term. If you feel like you're doing your passion and your life's work, like, cool. Okay. But I think that we have to take a very human-centric and humanitarian approach to the work that we do. What do I mean by that? That means give yourself grace, give your team grace, understand that, like, ain't none of us doctors out here. We're not. There's nothing that we're talking about is actually life and death.
That's true.
I mean, unless we're really saving lives in the emergency room, nothing we're doing is life and death.
So you're basically saying if it ain't, what do you say? Don't cry over spilled milk, essentially.
Or just take your time and ease into it. So there's a philosophy that I really got into in the beginning of the pandemic, which was it was called slow down to be more productive. And I decided to implement that with my team, just like reading some of the principles. And we literally, before we would start any sort of meeting, we would probably just shoot the shit for like 10, 15 minutes, just just laughing, kikiing. So if I had an hour meeting scheduled, instead of packing that entire hour, 10, 15 minutes, we like kiki, 20, 30. Okay, let's get down to business. The last little bit, we're also kikiing, like what we're going to do for the weekend, how we're going to hang out, blah, blah, blah. And when I tell you that my team was so much more productive because they were able to take brain breaks, because their minds were able to rest. And also as a founder, you need your mind to rest. Mm-hmm. When people tell me like they think when they're sleeping, I'm like, you're not thinking when you're sleeping and you're not doing what you're supposed to do. Sleep is supposed to be real rest. If you're restless in your sleep, you're putting a lot of stress on your body. Wow. Right? And so you need to figure out times during the day that you take your break. The other thing that I would do is like if you are a person who has a lot of meetings for whatever reason, even though I try not to have a lot of meetings. I've really been really thoughtful about this. Like,
I'm trying to reclaim my Mondays and Fridays by any means.
There's days where I'm like, there are no meetings. These are no meetings to stay, and I don't care what's happening. Or or if there are meetings, like I'm not doing back to back. I'm gonna take some time in between those meetings. I'm also the type of person like, does it really need to be an hour, or can we just get this done in 15 minutes?
That meeting could have been an email,
right? Or it could have been an email. Let's be really thoughtful about that. But the other thing is, if you are a person, if I say all those things and you're like pushing back, no, come on, I gotta have my hour-long back-to-back meetings. Okay, cool. Why don't you have some meetings where you take a walk?
Walking meetings are golden. Especially being here in Miami, you got the bay and the ocean and all of these different scenic spots.
Have people, let's go for a walk. Let's be active in some kind of way, shape, or form. Let's think about. Let's just change the monotony of what it is that we are doing. And so things like that I think are interesting. And if the person can't take a walk with you physically, take a walk on your phone and just let them know, like, hey, I'm going to be taking this call on my phone. I'm
Yep.
going to be walking. This is
Yep.
my daily walk. So
Get your little AI note taker to take all
that's
the
right,
minutes and
and that's what it's going to be.
yep.
So I think there are little different ways that we can still work, but work differently that makes sense for how the body works in terms of like what kind of oxygen are you breathing, what kind of environment are you in? Are you standing up? Are you sitting down? Are you
Yep.
moving your body in different types of ways?
Yep. I love that about just switching up the environment to give your brain a break. So speaking of the environment, um, Miami is now federally recognized as a tech hub. It is number 6 globally for startups. What do you think the Miami tech ecosystem is missing, if anything?
You know, it's interesting. The Miami tech ecosystem is very nascent, and it's often compared to like New York City and Silicon Valley, and
Really?
to a degree, Austin. And I'm sitting here thinking,
Already?
yeah,
That's
already.
nice. Okay.
Well, compared to, but not meeting, you know what I'm
Okay.
saying? In
Okay. Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
compared to. And I'm like, but yeah, but we're a baby. I mean, what
Yeah.
are we? We we have been known historically. Miami has been known historically as a tourist town,
Facts.
or as like a really wealthy playground, right?
Facts.
In
Retirement. Yeah.
retirement, which unfortunately glosses over the working people who are really vital to the economic ecosystem
Facts.
here in South Florida, Miami-Dade, Broward, etc. Um, so I think that what is fascinating about the Miami tech ecosystem is I see that we are seeing what some of the pitfalls were in Silicon Valley, some of the pitfalls that were in New York City, some of the pitfalls that were in Austin, and in all of those places, there was a lot of exclusion. And I think that Miami, and at least in my experience, has been trying to be much more thoughtful. It's not perfect, but much more thoughtful in the inclusiveness
I would agree.
of the ecosystem and what
Yeah.
that looks like. And me being able to sit on these educational boards, to be a mentor in a lot of entrepreneurship accelerator programs, and work with a lot of our higher educational institutions, it allows me as a conduit to ensure that what the business community is looking for here within the homegrown talent of Miami, I can then take that information and say to the schools, we need to make sure that we are doing these soft skills, we're doing the skills that
Facts.
are being asked for. And then, like, what's the conversation as it relates to higher ed, whether that's community college certificate programs, four-year universities, etc. And then how do you put everybody in a room to really think vertically and horizontally? Because yes, obviously we want the entrepreneurs to build, and that helps build the economy, but we also need our homegrown talent to stay and see opportunities here in Miami as well. And
Facts.
so how do we ensure that all of those things are kind of happening cohesively? Obviously, and I love the fact that we're nascent, because we're just learning and we're
Yep.
just kind of bringing this together, and we're
Yep.
doing research and development. And I would love to say in the next 10, 15 years, we will be an example of what that actually looks like. How did we come together as a community to ensure that homegrown Miamians stayed here? Or even if they went to Ivy League colleges and decided they wanted to come back here, that people are seeing the talent that they're looking for, that entrepreneurs are in fact being invested in. Um, and that Miami, which I think is really great about Miami too, is that Miami is a global city.
Facts.
I'm originally from New York, and New York is definitely a melting pot. There are lots of people from different countries and nationalities in New York, and so it has its own flavor. But here in Miami, it feels like an easy landing point for people who are looking to immigrate in a particular way, especially as an entrepreneur, especially if you want to get into tech. And climate tech is where we are the hub now
Facts. Yeah.
through the Biden Harris administration. Um, it has become now a hub that is not just about tourism, but it's really about real innovation and technological pursuits.
Nice. Nice. Thank you, Kumar, for that. Let me ask you next. What trends are you most excited about in the Miami tech scene? And how can new founders leverage those to their advantage?
I think I talked a little bit about this. I love the newness
Yeah.
of it,
Yeah.
right? I love the fact that people are trying to be a cohesive, inclusive environment. Um, I am not a person, and so everyone is gonna hate me, but I'm not a person who's like, oh AI, and like I don't do the latest buzzwords because I don't particularly care about that. To me, technology is just a tool, so the buzzwords are just the latest tool to get the work done. I care, and anyone who knows me knows, I care about the humanity of the work that we're doing. I care about ensuring that we have an ecosystem that feels equitable and accessible for all people.
Facts. Facts. So where do you find the best soul food in Miami? Man, I've been looking high and low, y'all. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. No shade KFC, but the best chicken in Louisville is King's or Indy's. They're gonna fight me in the comments. Where do I find some yams and some greens? And for my carnivores out there, some ribs, some jack, some salmon, some okra.
Okay, in real talk, you gonna find the best soul food at my mama's house.
Y'all heard it here first. See if y'all get a play. Find Kwamara on LinkedIn. Get the price. Support black business.
You gonna find the best soul food.
What's your favorite thing that your mother prepares?
Oh my God, what is it? So my mother is from New Orleans, Louisiana.
Ooh,
okay, see you already know. So she makes a mean gumbo.
Mean gumbo.
Oh man, her red beans and rice be on point.
Ooh,
but don't get
so
it twisted.
fun.
My father can also put his hand down in the kitchen.
Okay.
His fried chicken.
Ooh.
So everyone knows that every year for my birthday, I always want a birthday meal. My dad makes a little fried chicken. My mom makes the red beans and rice, and life is good. And
That
then we get some
sounds so
salad.
fire.
And we
Fried chicken
we
with some
get
red beans and rice.
good. Oh my God.
Okay, so Popeyes is a knockoff compared to your parents.
Oh yeah,
your parents' home cooking.
definitely. But let me. So I was being a bit facetious, but I will say, the Caribbean experience here in Miami
Okay.
is good, right?
Please tell me, put me on somewhere.
So I'll put you on to a
Please.
couple places. They did not pay me for this, but maybe I should send them this clip.
Right.
No, let me stop.
Right.
Maybe
okay. Put me on the side. We're working on sponsorships, guys. This is the premiere episode. Listen to our last question, and we'll wrap up. If I'm gonna go taste these places, if they're worth mentioning, I'll come back to the comments.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, and then you let them know.
Please. Let's see. Okay, I got a lot of good questions here, but okay. Actually, my last question is going to be, okay, two more questions. Two more questions.
All right.
So the next question is going to be, what advice do you have to offer those looking to make a meaningful impact in tech while bringing value to their communities?
Well, first and foremost, be authentic. Secondly, do not talk at the community. Do not say you're an expert of the community, but be of the community. Be humble. Understand what you're talking about. There are many people in our community who don't have quote unquote titles and who don't have quote unquote power and money, but they have a wealth of knowledge that we should absolutely acknowledge and honor and understand what that is.
Yep, facts. Thank you for that. Last question. Is there anything that I didn't ask you about or anything that you got in the works that you want to let the viewers know about?
I do have a few things in the works, but
roll it out. Let us know.
We're going to wait until some things have been cleared up, but I will let you guys know first and foremost. But
Checks
I will
clear, NDAs clear, contracts clear.
Exactly. But I will say a couple of things. Do not let your life happen to you. You happen to your life. You are the driver of your life. If circumstances aren't what you want them to be, I guarantee that there is a way to change. And this is why it's important to be able to sit and take time. When you're in survival mode, which I know a lot of people want us to be in survival mode so that we don't take that time to think. But if we can find our ways to get out of survival mode all the time, that time where like you're just decompressing from the day and you're having a glass of wine or you smoke a little blood or whatever it is that you do.
Do your thing.
Okay? Or you're working out. Let your mind wander and let yourself figure out, how do I be the solution that I want to be for my own life? Number one, everything starts with you. I believe in 3 currencies. Those currencies are love, empathy, and knowledge sharing. When it comes to love, love yourself first. I know this sounds cliche, but a lot of us are broken and we don't love ourselves. That's why you see so many of the problems in this world. Figure out what you love about yourself, lean into it, and love it. There's a reason why you're here on this planet. It is a blessing. I guarantee there's a reason why you're here on this planet, and it is a blessing. I always talk, not always, but oftentimes, I'm going to just say this one last thing, but I feel called to say it. There's a poet that I like. His name is John Donne. He grew up, he's a 17th or 18th century white Englishman. Hilarious. Um, and he was from London. And if you knew anything about that time period, when somebody died, the church bells would toll. Somebody would go up and they would ring the church bells, and then everyone would know that somebody had passed away. And so the poem says, I know for whom the bell tolls. And what he says is, no man or woman, he doesn't say that part, but that's me. No man or woman,
2024.
okay, is an island. I am less than when someone leaves our humanity because we are all human and connected together. I read that in middle school. That was many years ago, and it still resonates with me to this day. And that's how I walk through life. We are all connected through humanity. There's a reason why you are here. So practice self-love first and foremost, and the rest will come.
Ladies and gentlemen, Kwamara Thompson here at the Tech Lounge. I appreciate you coming by, stopping
Man,
by,
I appreciate it.
shooting the shit with us
Yes,
one
yes,
time.
absolutely.
Come back
Boom, boom,
anytime.
boom. I can't wait. Just tell me when the audience wants me back, and
Absolutely.
I shall return.
I probably should have said this in the beginning. Like, share, subscribe, comment, do all the things. And yeah, we'll see you next time. Peace.
Peace.